does it a little bit differently, but pretty much they all have a public regulation commission. So in New Mexico, it's called the PRC. And if nothing else from talking to folks, I want them to know who their PRC commissioner is and know that person is elected by you and you can talk to them. So for us here in Santa Fe, it's currently Ben Ray Lujan. And there's a general election in the fall between two candidates that have been in the paper recently, Rick Lass as the Green Party candidate and Jerome Block Jr. as the Democratic candidate. So these people are responsive to you. That there is a way to have an impact on what our electricity system looks like, except that the flip side of the slow evolution over the last 100 years has been increasing dependence on electricity, and with a monopoly and only a government bureaucracy, frankly, to control it, it's probably one of the least innovative. In my personal experience, some of the work I've done, it is the least responsive. It has change in this industry threatens the security and reliability, possibly, of your electricity, and they take it as a very, very high priority. In fact, almost every conversation you have with a utility executive our basically number one priority is that it's reliable, that when you turn the switch on, the lights come on and they don't go off. We have, in this country, a phenomenal electric system. I mean, it just doesn't go off. You read in the papers, and at least in developing countries, they're lucky if they get a few hours of electricity, and if it doesn't flicker on and off. And the costs, the dependencies of the dependence, these electronic industries where, for Intel, a shutdown, a half-hour blackout means millions of dollars of losses. We've really tried to keep it stable. It's also, of note, the most capital-intensive industry in the country and the world, I think, because each of these power plants is, give or take, it's $1 billion operation. You build it, and then you collect money over the 30-year or 50-year, as it turns out, lifetime of a coal plant or a nuclear plant at some steady rate. But you had to plunk down the billion, and build the Four Corners power plant for us, the San Juan power plant, the Palo Verde nuclear plant in Arizona. And for a little utility like PNM, which is actually small on a national scale, it's a significant risk. What if it doesn't work? What if there's cost overruns? All the issues that have come up. And one of the sayings in the sort of trade is the one thing that irks consumers more than anything are rate increases and disruptions to the system. The Attorney General, who is chartered by the state constitution as a protector of the consumer, that's all of us. I said you can go to your commissioner, but the man who represents you, or the woman in some cases, in front of the Public Regulation Commission on your behalf as a consumer of electricity is the Attorney General, and in New Mexico in particular, it's Jeff Taylor, a deputy assistant, who's been doing it 20 years, and he's outstanding. He's kept our rates really low in New Mexico. Utah and New Mexico have the lowest electric bills in the country for two reasons. One, it's a low rate, old coal plants that are paid for. These plants are 30 and 40 years old almost, the two big ones. And coal has been cheap. They're mine mouth. The coal is sitting right there. And secondly, unique to New Mexico and less so in Utah, we have a climate that doesn't demand cooling. Even in Albuquerque, a bit more down south. But compared, if you take we're always 48th or 9th on these lists of where New Mexico ranks. So you say, well, apples to apple, we only use a little bit, 600 kilowatt hours a month is the New Mexico average, or are we so poor we can't afford electricity? And so you say, wait, Louisiana, where does Louisiana rank on this chart? Louisiana, same economic level, uses twice as much electricity, and what's the big difference? They are in a hot, humid climate. They're running their air conditioners all the time. So so we're favored by this, that we can keep our relatively low electric bills. Low as they are, and Willem can probably verify, Europe and Japan, they're twice. The rate for electricity is twice what it is in the United States. But low as they are here, people squawk as soon as you talk about raising the rates. It's just something we are taken for granted and we're entitled to, and It's like anything. The price of bread goes up. We complain. I'm going to go back now to, I mentioned talking about cars and a utility and why we can see a reaction there. And let's see if I can do this metaphor that prices are going up. A lot of us, I think in this community, are saying, well, the obvious answer is to what? Get a more efficient car. But that's not the public outcry that at least is being heard in the media and the headlines is drill more. We have to get more oil. It's odd, interesting, perplexing to me that it's not let's use less. It's easy to do. Drive a more efficient, cheaper car. I mean, those SUVs are pricey. Why not buy a smaller car? Yes, there are issues of comfort and safety that come up. But the real issue is this: we've gotten complacent, I don't know if that's the right word, but we expect that cheap oil. And so getting over that is really, as many people use, hard. It's an addiction that we have to overcome. I think that's true in electricity. We don't really value it. It's cheap. Keep that clean, that dirty coal-powered, polluting stuff coming. It's not imminent. Maybe our grandchildren will be impacted by it. Is still, I think, a public sense of, is it really that urgent? And we're starting to break through, but when we're really faced with, am I going to pay more for electricity? It's a little bit harder. New Mexico, we should be proud to note, has one of the highest percentage of people who are voluntarily buying the wind power from PNM. They have a very successful program, and I think it is telling that something like 10% of customers voluntarily pay more for something they can't see. This electron is green? Really? Runs my lights just the same as any other electron, doesn't it? And yet we value that greenness, and we're willing to pay for it. I don't think we've done enough to express that value. And I want to turn now to two elements of efficiency that, just as examples. And this part of my talk could always go on and ask questions if you'd like about other technologies. We talk about energy efficiency as part of the solution in the utility business. I think you all know the mantra, it's half the cost of any other source of new electricity. That is, for about 3 cents a kilowatt hour, we can get energy efficiency, whereas it's the cheapest. Even the new coal plant is at least 6, if now they're talking 8 at least for any new energy source. So at 3 cents, we can go out and we, the utility, instead of putting our $1 billion into a power plant, put that billion, they don't start there, $1 million, into buying CFLs for people. Just take the money and go into people's homes and switch out their incandescent bulbs for these. That is a cheaper way, because we all pay for this communal system called the electric grid. So if it serves that community, they can all have their lights come on and maintain the service that we, the utility, feel compelled to offer, then do it in the cheapest possible way, efficiency. Compact fluorescent light bulbs. And we say it's renewable because the technology now is not just compact fluorescent light bulbs. Now we're going to be as LEDs. A CFL is 4 times more efficient than an old incandescent. Now the new LEDs are use half again as much energy. So we're going to switch all those out. And these are amazing technological fast changes, because even the CFL of yesteryear, the ones we had as kids, green, flickered, have undergone tremendous change. GE, Sylvania, Philips are hard at work developing new chemical coatings, phosphorus for the inside, so they're nice warm bulbs now. I saw in here we have mostly CFLs in the sockets, or you mentioned the low voltage, these bulbs for the lighting. That's business and opportunity for lots of new companies to change things. Here's the conundrum though for the utility. That's less electricity they're selling. Right now, through I told you how we started, and the goal was to get people to use more because it was the new thing and it made our power plants, the more you spread the costs around, the cheaper each unit of kilowatt hour is. Now we're telling the utility to sell less. But we set up a whole 50 years of history about how they recover money. And to pay for that plant, they came in and said, we're going to sell 8,000 gigawatt hours this year. if somehow we change that and they only sell 7,000 gigawatt hours, I'm going to exaggerate a little here, they could go bankrupt. Is that what we want? Our utility to go bankrupt because, and not have any lights? Some people will say, oh, well, we'll just all bring in photovoltaics. Well, wait a minute. I just told you, at least today, 3 cents for efficiency, 8 cents for coal. We know photovoltaics are still out there in today's technology, but coming down fast at 25 or 30 cents a kilowatt hour at least. So 10% of the people will voluntarily sign up for Sky Blue and pay about 20% extra.